Alright guys, I wanted to do a quick tutorial on the bouncing ball project that we did last week in case you were absent. So you're going to open Animate and you're going to hit Create New. You should have some tabs, something like this, and by default yours should display these presets. You can choose Standard or HD. For this one I'm not picky at all. I'm going to do Standard for mine. The only thing that I care about is regardless of what preset you choose that the frame rate is set to 24 frames per second and that this is set to ActionScript 3.0. Then you can go ahead and hit create. Okay, so it's going to lead you to your stage like so, and the first thing I want you to do is double click on the layer 1 here to rename it to floor. Remember, you're always going to want to have multiple layers in a document. I'm going to select the line tool. If you don't see the line tool, click these little three buttons at the bottom of your toolbar. And then you're just going to, let's say this was the line tool, drag and drop it over to your tools like this. And then you could either hit escape on your keyboard or this little menu bar and then close. Okay, but line tool, in my properties under the tool little panel, I want to make sure that the stroke is set to 1 and then maybe the stroke size is like set to 5. And I'm just going to come somewhere towards the bottom here, left click and drag over to draw a line. I'm also holding the shift key to draw a straight line across. So right now I anticipate all the drawings I'm going to make to be about 24 frames. So if your frames right here look really small like that and it's hard to click on certain frames, this little bar right here, you can left click and drag towards the mountains and it'll expand your timeline or your frames to look a bit bigger. So again, because I changed the frame rate to be 24 frames per second, under the 1 second mark this is 24 frames. So I just want to extend this drawing to be here for 24 frames. So I'm going to select, just click once on frame 24, and you could either hit F5 on your keyboard to insert frame, or you can right click and select insert frame. It'll always tell you the keyboard shortcut here as well. So right click, insert frame. Now this drawing is going to be there for 24 frames. I can go ahead and lock this layer. And I'm going to drag my playhead. So moving this blue bar up, left and right on your timeline is called scrubbing. So I'm just going to move it back to frame 1. I'm going to select the new layer. And this is the one I'm going to rename to guide. So double click, rename guide, and then enter. Alright, so anytime I give you a project, I expect you guys to look up references. Sometimes I'll provide them, but I'd rather you look for your own to practice looking up reference images that fit your style. All I did was go on Google and select and type in bouncing ball reference, and this is the one that we used in class. So you can save this or have it open on the side for you to reference, but I'm drawing this line right here so I know exactly the path that the bouncing ball is going to travel in. But just to give you a heads up of what I'm going to be drawing, where I got this from. Now you should have a drawing tablet at your disposal. You would use that. I don't have one here, so I'll be using my mouse. But Command Z or undoing is super normal when we're animating here, so don't feel bad if you have to redo this a couple times. For my guide, I'm changing this to a bright color. That's just a preference, and I'm choosing the classic brush tool. You're basically going to try your best to, that is way too, something like that. Change the width of the brush. And you want to do a couple bounces like so. If you don't like it, again, Command Z to undo. If it's looking really shaky, under the classic brush tool properties, you can change the smoothing to be at 100%. If you're struggling after like 20 times, you can do a dotted line too if it's easier for you to do. But at this point, it's just preference. Because we locked this layer, we can use our selection tool and box select stuff, or just the path, and then tweak it if needed. So if I need to move it down, I can totally do that here. Okay, but I'm going to hit pause really quick so I can do my path. Okay, so finally I have a path that I like, and because my first layer was set to 24 frames, it made sure that my guide layer is also there for 24 frames. So I want to ensure that this actually doesn't come out in my final project, or my final render, so I can do that by right-clicking and changing this to a guide. And you'll notice that the little icon changes too. But I'm done with that. I'm going to go ahead and lock it because I don't want any changes to happen. And I'm going to hit Create New Layer, double click on it, and this is going to be my ball. So ensure that you're in frame 1. How you create the ball is completely up to you, but I'm still using the reference image that I shared earlier. You can use the brush tool, change the fill to something like black, and then try your best to do a circle. You can also use the pencil tool, and under the pencil tool options, there's a straighten mode, so you can do a circle and it'll perfect it when you're under this mode. You can also come to the shape tools and then right click the rectangle tool and look for the oval tool. When working with this tool though, just make sure that there is no stroke color, and then you're using that, or that vice versa, that there is no fill color, because Animate separates the fill and the stroke color. So you'll be doing double the work if you do that way. So I'm going to hit pause and let you decide what tool you'd like to use. So I'm going to go ahead and use the shape tool for now. And in my reference photo, the first drawing starts somewhere here. So I'm going to hold the shift key to draw a perfect circle, left click and drag on my mouse to about something like that. I can box select using my selection tool, right, and adjust my drawing to be somewhere like that. And perfect. The next frame shows that the ball should be somewhere here, so I want to come to frame 2. It's this blank keyframe here. If you don't know what frame you're in, it'll show you up on your timeline. This is frame 2. And I want you to hit F6 on your keyboard as a keyboard shortcut, or you can right click and select Insert Keyframe. So what Insert Keyframe does is that it copies your previous drawing so that you can just kind of click and drag and make those minor changes without having to redraw it all over again. So now the ball is down here. So if I scrub through my timeline, I see it starts here, it ends up over here. You should only ever have one drawing per frame here. Okay, so I'm going to go to my next one, right click, insert keyframe, and then with my selection tool, just move it slightly lower. Again, this is the reference image I'm using, so we're about right here. Awesome. Going to go to my next frame, right click, insert keyframe. This one's slightly lower now, about right there. And for this one, my 5th frame, there is some stretch happening. So I'm going to switch over to my free transform tool. I'm going to zoom in, and I want to squish this like so. To make a stretch. And if you hover over the corners until this little icon pops up to rotate, I'm going to rotate it like so, drag it over and position it. This is a great moment too to use the onion skin tool, and that's this little button right here to see where my other frames have previously been. So if I do need to make the ball bigger, remember this shouldn't shrink in size, it should keep the same volume. So that looks a bit more believable now. Okay, I'm going to go over to my next blank frame, insert keyframe, drag it down, and this is my squash, so I'm going to just rotate it like so. Probably need to rotate it some more. Okay, now you can scrub and play back. I'm going to turn off onion skin really quick. And that's what it's looking like so far. So I want you to keep creating keyframes with different drawings following whatever reference you chose, preferably this one. I'm going to hit pause and complete all of the other ones. Okay, so I'm actually going to be now in frame 8. And in frame 8, the ball kind of goes back to normal and it is not squash and stretch. This was a good question that I had during class about how do I make it back to the original. I can come over to this frame right here, and then I can hit right click, copy frames, come back to frame 8. I can delete this one right here. Oops. I need to go to frame 8, not frame 7. Right click and hit paste frames. And now I can just, there we go, use my selection tool. Come over here and place it where it needs to be. So it's about here in the drawing. But yeah, use previous drawings if you'd like by copying and pasting. Alright y'all, so I have all of my drawings on my timeline now, and you should see a keyframe in every single frame here. Now, there's some instances where I didn't use the exact same number of drawings. That's because my path runs differently, and then the ball might be bigger, so a lot of it was just customizing it to fit your path kind of deal. But yeah, if I hit play, that's what it looks like, and it looks pretty great. You should congratulate yourself because you just made this your first little animation, but it does go by too fast. So remember, we set our frame rate to be 24 frames per second because we should be animating in twos. Right now we did straight ahead animation, so we just kind of put the poses down. We're going to go in there and extend every frame to be here for 2 frames. Okay, so every keyframe, I want you to either select it and then hit F5 to extend it. You only have to click F5 once. Or you can right click and select Insert Frame. Awesome, so see now it's there for 2. And you're going to want to do that for most of the drawings, or at least starting off I do it for all of them. Oops, not keyframe. Frame. And you'll notice that the floor and the guide layer disappear from your timeline, and that's okay. We can bring them back. It's just that we are now past, because we've extended the number of frames here, we've left behind the other two layers, but we can always bring them back. And I usually love keyboard shortcuts. I just have a custom keyboard and it doesn't have the function keys. So, all right, awesome. So now it's there for 2 frames. We're going to bring these back. So in the guide layer, I'm just going to make sure I select frame, what is this? The 2-second mark, okay. 48 here, so right click, insert frame. The same thing for the floor layer, right click, insert frame. Now I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard to play that out, and that looks much better now. You might be playing yours and there might be some places where it seems a little wonky. Most of the time it's like in the stretch or squash where, let's say, I don't want this squash to be there necessarily for 2 frames. I can just come here, right click, and hit remove frames, and then play that back and see if I like it better. Maybe I want to remove this frame here, but at this point, this is all preference of how you're perceiving your drawings. I like it this way. You actually should have done a save as in the very, very beginning, but kind of speed running through this. You're going to go File, Save As. You're going to make sure you have your USB, and you're going to rename this your last name, first name initial, underscore, ball, animation, like so. Keep the FLA file extension because you always want to have a working file. And this is a guide layer, so it won't render out, but you can always also delete it if you don't want it there at all. I'm going to keep mine because I want to, but you're going to go up to the top, File, Export, Export Animated GIF. And you can play it back in this menu to see. There's 3 options here where it says 2-up, Optimize, Original. If you don't like the optimized version, you can go back to original and it keeps your timing. Transparency, for some reason it didn't keep my background. But it doesn't optimize, so I guess I'm going to keep optimized. I'm going to hit save. If your transparency is checked on, you can just check it off and it'll bring back your background color. But I'm going to hit save. Make sure I'm in my USB again. Leave the title. Make sure the extension is correct. And then hit save. And the GIF file is what you're going to submit into Schoology. And that's it.